All right, so now we know a little bit about why we want to be using Docker, right? We want to be using Docker because it allows us to set up an environment, and we know that this can sometimes be pretty tricky. And also it's really important, for example, when we want to make sure that something is exactly configured in production, so then we don't have to be surprised and go around trying to debug it later. Now the next step, of course, is to try to download Docker itself. So how do we do that? Well, I'm not quite sure, but hopefully we can figure it out. Let's do download our Docker Mac. Looks like I've maybe cheated on going here before. And then click on Install Docker Desktop on Mac. If you don't have a Mac or you don't feel like downloading Docker, that is totally fine. There is this Docker Playground lesson where you can use Docker just by going to a different website, and we will go to that and walk through that in a separate lesson. But for now, I'm going to go through how to download Docker on my computer, which is a Mac, and then you see there are these two different options, Mac with Intel chip or Mac with Apple chip. So if you're not sure which one you have, you can click on the Apple and then go to About This Mac. And you can see I have this Apple M1. It says chip is Apple M1. So if your chip says Apple after this, then that means you want to click this button. Otherwise, probably want to click that button. All right, so I'm going to click Mac with Apple. We can see that it's downloading, and then we'll come back when it stops downloading. All right, so this thing has downloaded. I'm going to click Show in Finder, double click this .dmg file. I don't know what that is. Just going to trust the internet. It's always a good idea, right? Okay, and the next thing that tells me to do is move this over to my applications folder. So I'm going to do that. Normally hear some sort of sound. I'm going to click. All right, so it looks like it is, moving Docker over to the applications folder. So I'm just following instructions. That's what a lot of programming is. All right. So now if I go over here and I click on applications, we can see that Docker is listed there. So we can double click on there. Last times I'll press Command Space to bring up Spotlight Search, and I'll just type in Docker and then press Enter. And my eyes are immediately going to they were going to the top right, but it says, okay, do I want to trust this thing? I'll say yes. It needs privileged access, fine with me. So I'm going to type in my password. And then this is what I'm looking for. Okay, so you see this little ship, like docking stuff, and then these little, maybe we can call them containers even. That's the Docker word. So that's the Docker software, and it's booting up right now. While it's moving, that means it's still booting up. I'm going to accept the terms. And in other words, while it's still booting up, you won't be able to really interact with Docker. You're going to have to wait a moment until you see this thing essentially stop moving. All right, so my Docker icon has stopped moving. It looks like things are essentially ready. This tutorial, by the way, not like I should be promoting somebody else, but their tutorial is quite good. So I do recommend, if you want more help with Docker, to take a look at it. We're going to X out of this for the moment. And what I'll do is go to the command line. So in Mac, you can type in that command space and then type in terminal again. And your Mac comes with a terminal that you can then use. And I'll press Command plus to make this bigger. And now we should have the Docker CLI installed on our computer. Docker CLI just stands for Command Line Interface. Whenever you hear the phrase CLI, that's what it means. And it means that you can interact with the program from your terminal. Okay? So it looks like Docker's installed. And I'll do Docker-V. And there it is. We have installed Docker. So next up, we will start using it to download and work with that Ghost blogging piece of software that I spoke about.